Hello, and welcome back to Even the Trunchbull. Thanks for rejoining us. Before we start, we just wanted to bring you a quick content warning. We both think that the books we're going to be discussing in this episode are lovely and beautiful, but they do deal with topics which might be difficult for some listeners. Those include grief, the death of a child and the death of a parent, sadness, anger, and occasional moments of violence. Look after yourself. You know what's best for you. No worries at all if you decide you want to give this one a miss. We'll be back next week with a bit of a lighter episode where we'll be reading books that feature made-up languages. And now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to Even the Trunchbull, our show about children's books and why we still love them as adults.
She's Nina.
They're Matt.
And we think that children's books are for everyone, because we've all been kids. Even the Trunchbull.
They're all mistakes, children. Filthy, nasty things. Glad I never was one.
From Roald Dahl's beloved Matilda, despite her protestations. Each episode, we'll be reviewing one picture book and one chapter book. We're starting off with the books that we read as kids, but if you've got a book you'd like us to review, especially if you are currently a kid, please get in touch.
You can email us on eventhetrunchbull@gmail.com or catch us on Twitter @TrunchbullPod. This week we're reading books around the theme of grief, Michael Rosen's Sad Book and Pog by Pádraig Kenny. Would you like to start us off about the Sad Book, Matt?
Yes, so the Sad Book I read a couple of years ago for the first time. It was given to me by someone very dear to me. It feels like a fireside conversation. It feels like one of those moments where someone kind of sits possibly at the end of a long night and kind of opens the heart to you, but in like a really gentle way that's not, it doesn't put too much on you. It's just like, this is how I feel sometimes.
Yeah, and it's really appropriate, I'd say, even for really young children.
Yeah, so it's quite heavy, but it's just dealt with in this really matter-of-fact way. That's just really touching and then kind of illuminating at the end. And I think quite noticeably doesn't come to a resolution.
No.
It doesn't end in a sort of, but it's okay, and sometimes it's just sort of...
You have the page full of candles, and then you have Mr. Rosen sitting in the dark staring at a candle with his hollowed out eyes.
It's that thing of, it's okay not to be okay, and the candle helps, and it's not going to solve it, but there are still nice things in the world.
We should talk about the illustrations. It's Quentin Blake.
Oh, of course it's Quentin Blake. That makes sense. Yeah, they're gorgeous. Are we doing a synopsis? Have we done enough?
It's not really a story.
No, I suppose it isn't. It's kind of a poem or a letter, I guess.
Yeah.
One of the other things that really strikes me with the Sad Book is that a link between sadness and anger.
Well, and him saying he feels angry at Eddie for going and dying and making him sad like that.
Yeah, how dare he go and die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the bit where he's screaming in the shower.
Yes, yeah, there's a whole little sequence where he shouts in the shower and bangs spoons on the table and puffs
and makes his cheeks go woof.
Yeah. Which again, you can so see Michael Rosen doing.
Yeah.
I think for me, what I love, and I guess it's something that I try and do in my writing as well a lot of the time, is take something that's very, very personal and makes it kind of global. It's like this sort of...
It's very practical in that sense.
It's kind of a how-to book on dealing with grief, I guess.
And sadness in general,
But yes, the illustrations.
Yeah, so this drawing, it opens on a portrait of Michael Rosen by Quentin Blake, and he's got this manic grin and these really big eyes.
If you know Michael Rosen at all, it's a really, really good depiction of Michael Rosen, because it's those almost trademark eyes, that kind of all of his features.
Those popping eyes,
Yeah, everything popping out of his face.
It really looks like him, and it says it's him pretending to be happy, even though he's sad, because he thinks people might not like him if he's sad. I've known quite a few people in the last couple of years lose people, and I've seen this smile on people's faces. You know, like the just holding it together but really falling apart inside look. And And then there's this sequence of... So Eddie is Michael Rosen's son, who died when he was 18 of meningitis.
And it's the line, so I loved him very much, but he died anyway.
Yeah.
That's just kind of... I cried quite a lot when I first read this book. And it nearly got me again, just revisiting it now.
I think, so what we're looking at is a double-page spread of Eddie's life, from being a little baby in the bath to being a teenager, laughing with his friends, and then the last panel is just empty because he's not there anymore. And it's really powerful for, it's such simplistic drawings, the drawings that you see in like Roald Dahl books. They're doing a really good job with Michael Rosen's words of conveying the grief and the loss. Yeah,
I'm just thinking now as well, like, one of the sort of occurs to us, one of the things that Quentin Blake manages to do so well in his drawings is like capture movement and different levels of movement. Like in this sequence we're looking at, it's like this, I guess, the sketchiness of the drawing, like that franticness and that energy and things happening, you can see that. And then in the stiller ones where, like, because sad is represented as just this thing, this cloud or this bigness that is just there and isn't always explainable. And in those pictures you really, really get the stillness as well.
Yeah.
I think there's something about that relationship between an author and an illustrator making a book like this must be something really special.
Yeah.
Because it's such a collaboration, isn't it? And Quentin Blake must have had to kind of get so close and deep into that set of feelings.
Well, and he must have looked so much at Michael Rosen's face when he was sad.
Yeah. It's really interesting because he's got a lot of stuff on YouTube and a lot of videos. He like performs a lot of his poems for kids, and you don't see him looking sad. You don't see this face on him.
No.
So it feels like being let into something really
private. Yeah, but he's so generous about it, isn't he?
Yeah. It's a very,
like, it doesn't feel like, oh, I shouldn't be looking.
No,
it feels like I've been invited in.
Yeah. This kind of it feels live. It feels like a sort of, like it's happening now, which I think for something that's written is quite an achievement.
Well, I'm sure it still is live for him. Eddie's still dead.
Yeah. That's the thing for me. I remember, but like the first time I read it and rereading it now, you're sort of getting towards the end, waiting for because it kind of comes through sort of, it's talking about the things that he remembers that are nice, like his mum in the rain and Eddie walking along the street laughing and laughing and laughing, doing his old man act in the school play, playing saves on the sofa, on and off the sofa, and birthdays, not just mine, other people, and candles. There must be candles, and then that's it.
Yeah,
and it's building towards this, like, and it's okay because there's love in the world and there's people, and I can put the sadness away, and then it just doesn't quite.
He doesn't do that. No,
he doesn't give.
I really appreciate that about it, that it doesn't wrap it up.
Yeah,
because it's ongoing, and he doesn't. Yeah, like I said, he doesn't look okay on the last page. But he's holding it together and he's looking at a nice candle. And the work that Quentin Blake's done with the light in this book is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
sometimes sadness happens, because he's saying that as well. There's a bit in it where he's sort of saying, I'm going to try and find the page for the wording. He's sort of talking about sadness sometimes just being there anyway. Yeah, sometimes I'm sad and I don't know why. It's just a cloud that comes along and covers me up. And it's not because Eddie's gone. It's not because my mum's gone. It's just because that feeling of sadness just arriving and then passing again and not really being explicable, I know so well as well. So it's, I guess, it sounds very low and downers, but it's quite a sort of, it's
lovely,
it's
and
a vehicle,
it's funny as well. Like it's not overwhelming, actually. It's not too much.
It's really crafted, and it's that, again, that thing that Michael Rosen does so well, is it feels effortless, and it feels kind of top of the head, tip of the tongue, and it's still got that whimsy, as you say. It's still got that kind of humour. is a very careful hug for someone who needs
Yeah.
by someone who
also needs it.
Yeah, and but like I think that's the generosity of it. That concept of writing not just being something that's something for yourself, but that is like a generous act and like creating a space for other people to feel stuff and process stuff that they're feeling. And the enormity of effort.
Would recommend for anyone, but especially children experiencing sadness of any kind.
Because that's the context in which it was given to me. The message of it being like, it is okay to be sad.
Yeah. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's.
So our second book for this episode is Pog by Pádraig Kenny. And this isn't something I grew up with or you. I think it's quite recent.
It's very, very recent for me. I finished listening to an audiobook of it before I came out to record this and was late partly because I just had a big cry after it.
So that's the kind of book it is. Makes Matt cry.
It's another one of those.
Yeah. So as it's fresh in your memory, do you want to tell us what it's about?
It's so beautiful. Where do we start? It's so, so lovely. It's kind of, it's a fantasy book, and it's a kind of like a world where there are sprites and fairies and boggarts and dark wicked things that hide in the cellar, and it's and it's also a book about recently widowed, is that the right word? Dad, with 2 kids moving from London to somewhere in the countryside, and it's woodland and countryside, and this old house that belonged to his wife's grandparents.
Yeah, I think so. So the woman who died's grandparents.
Yes.
They've just got the ashes of their mum sent back to them.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to deal with their stuff. David is so angry, and Penny is angry with David and with her dad because neither of them's dealing with it very well. Her dad's just pretending that everything's okay, and it's really, really not. And Pog, who is a first folk, Pog's up in the attic going, humans have come again. What's this? What's this about?
First time in 30 years there are humans back in the house.
Yeah.
Pog is talking at various points throughout the book to his granddad who died, and he's remembering things about his grandfather. And kind of using him as a guide, I suppose.
He talks to him. He says, what next, Grandpa?
Yeah.
And Grandpa goes, what next, Pog?
Yeah, what to do next? And Pog's grammar is kind of adorable. It's that sort of simplified, very economical with language, slightly childlike, but very just...
Oh, he's so adorable, isn't he?
He's great.
He's very single-minded, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's got his job, and he's going to do his job really well.
Yeah. And
if he doesn't do it really well, he tells himself off.
He beats himself up quite a bit, doesn't he? Yeah.
So in that way, he's a bit of a Dobby character as well, isn't he?
He is. He's got, but less kind of off the wall than Dobby.
Yeah.
I think Dobby's got that kind of like bull in a china shop thing of like tries to help and then messes things up.
Yeah. Pog's a bit more competent, isn't he?
Pog's quite grounded.
Yeah. And so he starts trying to do his job around them, but they're kind of getting in his way.
Because Pog doesn't like the kids at first at all. He's like...
They're in his way.
Yeah, it's like...
moving his stuff around.
He's their protector.
Yeah.
But he's like, oh, guys, like, stop playing with my stuff. Like, I'm doing a job here. Like...
Stop trapping my mouse.
Yeah.
And David thinks that the stuff that's moving around them is rats, so he decides to set some rat traps. But they don't trap a rat, they trap a Pog.
Yeah.
And Penny and David become friends with Pog.
And Pog's job is to keep the darkness out.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yes. And Pog is full of sympathy for Penny and David because Pog has lost his grandfather.
Yeah.
So he knows what it's like to lose someone. And he creeps down in the night and he polishes their mum's urn.
Yeah.
And he looks at the photos and he organises all the books of photos on the shelf.
Yeah.
He's trying to look after them and he's trying to keep them safe. and they're trying to keep him safe. And they don't tell any of this to their dad because he's off pretending everything's fine. And it becomes apparent that more and more dark things are coming through the necessary, which we don't know what it is. But Pog says he has to guard the necessary to stop things coming through. And more of them are coming through. We don't know why, but it's probably got something to do with the tree that bit David in the woods.
Yeah.
David is drawn to this tree because he thinks he can hear his mum calling for help. So he keeps going back.
And he frees a tree sprite who sort of says, I was locked in this tree by monsters who destroyed all my people.
You freed me, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
He's called Kipwick,
Yeah.
the tree sprite, and he's so kind to young David. I need to read out this bit. A cloud moved over the moon. The darkness covered the corpses that lay out of sight behind Kipwick's tree. It covered the hare with its broken neck, the fox that had been torn and gutted, the many squirrels that now gazed sightlessly into the night, and the darkness covered Kipwick's face.
It's a really dark book.
Yeah.
It's totally a kid's book.
Yeah.
But it's really not a kid's book. Yeah. So it's kind of, it's a story about grief and the family, and then Pog simultaneously dealing with this unresolved grief. And I think similarly to the sad book is kind of the places that grief can go and the things that can happen from that. So David's anger, building from his sadness, that then leads to kind of, there are consequences to that anger. That really got me, the terror of that, because all of the dark stuff is in the dark place behind the door.
Yeah.
Apart from this one little tree kid. Making Pickwick a sympathetic character is a real success of the writing. Because he is evil.
Yeah.
He is the baddie. But again, it feels like watching someone dealing with their own grief and their own issues in completely the wrong way.
And he doesn't comfort David badly, to be honest.
No, he's friendly, he's nice, he's everything David needs.
And he makes a lot of room for David's grief and anger.
Yeah.
Like,
in those initial bits where he's kind of comforting David and he's sort of saying, I've had grief too, grief is okay. There's a certain amount of sympathy.
Yeah, sure. He starts out pretty sympathetic, I think. Even when you know he's killed all those animals in the forest, when you see him with David, he is what David needs.
Yeah.
David doesn't actually want boundaried, responsible support of his grief. David wants someone who will go mad with him.
Yeah.
Who will go mad with grief with him.
And go into the darkness. Yeah.
And nobody else is offering that.
Yeah.
I think that's partly what's so appealing about Kipwick is he will reach out and touch David, put his hand on him and let David cry. David hasn't done that with the others.
No.
David doesn't let himself cry with the others.
Yeah. Talking about the sort of gendered aspects of the book, David and his anger, and that being... I while I was listening to it, because the thought crossed my mind about the gendered stuff, because there's a lot of fighting and sword play and all of that, and David's anger being such a driving force. And I was thinking, well, if that was led by Penny, that would still read, and it's not necessarily gendered, but that young lad having sort of visceral pent up anger as his kind of only seemingly valid way of processing these feelings.
That's very socialised as male, isn't it?
Yeah, and that felt quite true in the context of the book.
In a way, it's like Penny and Dad are not sad enough. They don't... How have we just accepted this terrible thing happened?
They don't have the same anger that he does.
Yeah. Like, how can... Like it's a betrayal of their mum to accept that she's gone.
It's a bit, do not go gently into that good night.
Yeah. Like, why aren't we fighting this?
But also, Pickwick...
Kipwick. Yeah.
Kipwick gives him something back.
Yeah.
With a complete sort of malicious, evil, ulterior motive.
Yeah.
But I mean, Pog's kind of an empty vessel, right? Like he's there for them, and he's a way for them to process the grief. You're saying like they can talk to Pog, but Pog doesn't really give anything back. He doesn't sort of like there is sympathy there, but in a way, it's a really healthy response to that grief. He just listens.
Yeah, he's really boundaried, isn't he?
Yeah, it's kind of almost subliminally the way a counsellor would approach it, that he just kind of accepts and holds those feelings. Whereas, like, maybe David needs more than that.
Yeah.
That's why when Pickwick comes along and is saying, it's okay to feel this.
Yeah.
Which actually he's doing in a really manipulative way, but gives that extra level of comfort.
Well, and he gives them something to do about it.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah.
David wants to do something about it. He does not want to accept that, she went out shopping and then she was dead. What?
Again, is that quite male? Is there something that practical? I need to do something. I need to fix this.
Yeah, for sure. And the dad's doing the same thing. I'm going to go and fix this house about their grief.
Yeah. We're going to make it open plan, and this is going to be... yes, because that's it. He says, that's the bit in the studio that prompts that awkwardness. He says something about, I want this to be a place that we can move on and push forward, and does like an action with his hands, and then they both sort of are a bit embarrassed that he's described it like that and done this little action. That's the really tragic thing about the dad, is like you watch him being gutted with himself.
Yeah.
Like he can't do anything about it, but he's like, the way he's behaving is like, this is not the way to be dealing with this.
No.
But is literally the only thing that I'm capable of. Penny has much more of a level head. Yeah,
she's older.
It's true.
And she's a girl, and I feel like she's really, and this is unfair on her, but like she's really stepped into the mum role. Her mum's gone, and she is mumming those two men, those boys. She's looking after her dad. Yeah. She's looking after her brother. She's trying to get them to talk to each other civilly, which is difficult.
Of the three of them, she's the only one who seems to kind of be mindful of where other people are. Mm-hmm. David isn't doing that. And again, he's young, but he's very bound up in his own anger. But the dad isn't really doing that either.
No, and he should be.
Yeah.
Well, and it's really unfair on Penny. He leaves a lot of that parenting to Penny, I feel like, with David. And Penny's not very old.
No.
And that's quite a common gendered dynamic, I think, when you have made a woman president of all the emotions, and then she's just gone. Often it just falls on the next oldest girl.
Yeah. But it's Penny who suggests scattering the ashes at the end as well.
Which is such a good idea.
Yeah.
And she's ready for it. And David's ready for it.
That's not quite, is he?
Dad's not, but maybe he's not going to be.
Yeah.
He was not going to suggest it, was he?
No.
He was going to have it up on the mantelpiece forever.
Yeah.
And he was going to talk to it. Like he does at the beginning, he goes, your mum's stuck on the motorway or something. When the delivery of the ashes goes wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the chapter opens on the dad going, your mum's stuck on the motorway. And it's not clear yet that the mum is dead.
And then the delivery driver
shows up with the jar.
And Penny's like, could you give me my mum, please?
Yeah. And the delivery driver scuttles away.
He's like, can't remember.
But, the dad is still talking about her like she's alive.
Oh, I just had a thought. Is Pog and the dad kind of the same person?
So Pog is the healthy side of the dad?
Yeah, in the way that, like, stagings of Peter Pan, the dad and Captain Hook are always played by the same... It's kind of like that's the metaphor they're setting up. Like, because Pog does that as well, like when...
And Pog still talks about grandfathers if he's alive.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I don't think they're the same person, but maybe what Pog's doing is stepping in where the dad can't.
Yeah. Pog is like the healthy side of dad and the bits that dad can't be, and it's maybe a projection of the kids of what they need dad
the kids
to
are
be.
Like, wish dad would do this.
Yeah.
Pog is quite masculine, isn't he? But he's masculine in this like lovely, untoxic way where he is a protector and a defender and a fighter, and but also he's super in touch with his emotions, and he's got this lovely close relationship with his grandfather.
Oh, Pog. He's lovely, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's
so lovely.
Lovely little bodkin.
That's a good word for him, a bodkin.
A bodkin, yeah.
Like a little bod.
Yeah, just a little bumbling along. But he's like on it, and he's like a fierce little fighter. He's great. Like, he's proper sort of like, I want him in my life. How old is Pog?
Pog's really old.
But he reads as a kind of 10-year-old. Do you not think? It's a bit of both, because he's got that kind of like...
He's very wise.
He is very wise, but he's also that single-mindedness thing.
Yeah.
There's a very sort of like, he's been set a task and he's been set a job, and that's what he'll do. And there's something about that link to his grandfather kind of creates that juvenile sense for me, that he's like, I suppose, almost reliant on a mentor.
So he's not developing, he's stuck with his grandfather, isn't he?
Yes.
He's the same person.
Yeah.
He's no more evolved at all later, because he's still just, there's probably only so many things his grandfather was able to say to him before he died, and so he's probably just playing them on a loop. He can't produce any more new content, so it's just the same things over and over again. Good Pog. What's next to do, Pog?
Yeah.
He's just getting himself through every day. He's not able to accept it or move on, is he?
Yeah.
He gets through every day. He's really brave.
Until right at the end, when his granddad says, "I love you more than the world."
Yeah.
And it's like the first... Yeah, because I've not thought about that's like the first time that his grandfather says something that isn't new. Just a kind of... Yeah, something new. Like, it's why it's so nice having that end moment of him being able to let go of that, even though that's so sad, is that it feels like throughout the book, Pog's not totally his own person. He's there.
He needs a lot of guidance.
He's there to fulfill this task, and he needs some guidance to fulfill that.
And it's a really difficult, lonely task when he has to do it.
Yeah.
And he just accepts that. He never goes, maybe I don't care about this task.
He never grumbles. No,
he just does it.
Yeah.
You're right, he is very childlike, but I think he's very old.
I liked, as you mentioned in that, the moment where they go on their quest hunting for greebaldies or rats, and they go hunting for rats. At that moment, they just start cracking up at greebaldies, because it was a
greebaldies and rat poo, isn't it?
Yeah, because it was a word their mum used, and it's such a lovely moment, because as well, in terms of that kind of like processing of grief things, they just sort of sit and crack up at each other for ages and ages and ages, and that kind of like, where's the line between
laughing and
crying,
but that they're able to access something about their mum that was lovely, not just sadness. That they've still got this ridiculous word that's really funny. And then there's the same, they're falling about the rat poo, aren't they? That they can't find any rat poo.
Yeah.
Because David's taking it so seriously. He's like, well, we have to eradicate these things out of the house. I'm going to put traps down. Are you going to help me? Or like, David's so angry and earnest all the time. And Penny's like, if we must, can't make this dad's problem. Like, she is really taking on the mum's role, isn't she?
Penny's dealing with this better than anyone. And that she's really kind of like, she's really on it and sort of cajoling everyone else along. Like, come on, guys, come on. Like, we've been wallowing for a while now.
Let's go for a walk.
Can we stop doing this, please? One of the other things that I kind of was really, really interested in this was there's sort of this idea of, it plays briefly with the idea of what is good and what is evil. And I think kind of settles its point on that quite quickly, but there's a moment of who are the goodies and who are the baddies here. And the darkness that's being kept out, there's a sort of brief suggestion that
they're the victims.
And I thought that was really interesting. And interesting that it didn't maintain that as well. I think having that kind of I don't know, because it was sort of, the darkness is the baddie in this story.
Yeah.
But maybe it's kind of, there's definitely an acknowledgement that the darkness is necessary.
Yeah.
You know? It is a necessary part of the processing of the grief, and is part of the world, and needs to be part of the world, but needs to be, I don't know, kept where it belongs, I suppose.
Yeah, kept in check.
Yeah.
Not allowed to take everything over and destroy everything that's good.
Yeah.
And everything that's left. So we really love this book.
Oh, it's a new favourite.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
Who's it for? Who would it be good for?
I would not go too young just because of the violence.
Yeah.
It's the only age prohibitive thing in it, I think.
Because the grief, the
grief is
fine.
fine.
I think is fine, but it does get a bit. It doesn't pull punches at points with the.
Yeah. I also think this would be a nice one to read together.
I think so. I really think so.
This would be a really lovely, like, a chapter a night read together. Especially if you are reading to a kid who's maybe a bit sensitive to the violence. I think it would really help to have you reading it with them. I maybe wouldn't leave this alone in the hands of a very sensitive child, because I think the violence might just be very upsetting, but, you know, so I'm saying parental guidance for the very young.
Yeah.
But it's great.
But I think also, I think it is a kid's book, but I think it's an adult's book as well.
Yeah.
I think whatever age you are.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
and
If you're an adult, definitely read it.
Similarly to the sad book, as a vehicle for processing grief, it brought back a lot of stuff for me, and made sense of a lot of things. The thing at the end that it comes round to of pain and joy being part of the same thing,
Yeah.
and suffering being necessary, and the joy of memories and the suffering that those memories bring being intrinsically linked.
Yeah.
And being powerful and being the force and the essence of life.
Yeah.
And the joy of letting go, beyond the necessity of letting go.
Yeah.
Like that being able to be a lovely thing and a celebratory thing.
Yeah, it's not at all a betrayal of Grandpa, is it, when Paul lets go?
No, I mean, Grandpa suggests it.
Yeah.
It's a happy thing. It's everyone's so much happier once they find a way to
Accept what's
scatter the
happened.
ashes.
Yeah. Okay, so that was episode 2 of Even the Trunchbull.
Thanks for listening.
Once again, if you've any thoughts on books you loved as a kid,
Or love now as a kid.
let us know, or ask a grown-up to let us know. We're at eventhetrunchbull@gmail.com and on Twitter @trunchbullpod.
And the intro music for this episode and every episode is What a Wonderful Day by Shane Ivers.
And remember, kids' books can be for everyone, because we've all been kids. Even the Trunchbull.